Hello my dear friends, and welcome back to another Star Wars news update. In today's video we have so much to get through. We're going to be speaking about the Kenobi series, Jon Favreau's words on Boba Fett, some new comments from Kathleen Kennedy, and more. So without much further ado and without any more jibber jabber, let's get straight into it. So we begin with the Kenobi series. With just 8 days to go, hype for the show is mounting, and yesterday, Hayden Christensen, Moses Ingram and Ewan McGregor sat down with Vanity Fair to answer some questions, and it's in this interview that Moses revealed the full name of her character, the third sister, Reva. It turns out she's called Reva Savander, and interestingly enough, Moses pronounces it Reva, not Reva, so maybe that's how we're meant to be saying it. So the character's full name is Reva Savander, and in this interview, Moses once again teased how big her character is going to be in the show, describing her leadership skills, and we know from other interviews as well as the Making Star Wars leaks how ruthless this Inquisitor is. It was great to see the three of them hype up the series and talk about Star Wars, specifically Ewan and Hayden, who once again reminisced about the best parts of working on the prequel trilogy and what it means to them to return to Star Wars. And it was in Ewan's final comment that we got the most heartwarming moment of the interview, something that hit me really deep. Both actors were asked about which Star Wars creature or character they'd most like to meet in real life, and Ewan replied Jar Jar Binks, before then adding he hopes they're able to get Ahmed back, Ahmed Best, and so many of us have been wanting him to return to Star Wars for years. Unfortunately, when Making Star Wars spoke to him a few months ago, Ahmed says he was not involved in the Kenobi show, but if there is going to be more than one season of the series, I think it'd be amazing if they included him. And while the backlash to the character was horrendous the first time round, sending Ahmed to the darkest point of his life, I think this time, or at least I hope, the fandom would have his back, especially with the newfound appreciation for the prequel trilogy. Now personally, I love Ahmed. He was a huge part of my childhood, a huge part of many of our childhoods, and his return would be simply wonderful. And you don't even need to have him play a comic relief version of Jar Jar again. With Deborah in charge, Jar Jar could play a meaningful role as an old friend and ally to Kenobi. But let's see what happens. It's a fan wish at the moment, but it's a great sign that Ewan acknowledged him, not just once, but twice in this interview, citing him as one of the 3 biggest reasons he loved working on the prequel trilogy. Awesome stuff there. I highly recommend you go and check out the full video. And so now, my dear Megalorians, it's time to move on to yet another piece by Vanity Fair, and this is a full interview with Kathleen Kennedy about the future of Star Wars. A couple of days ago, fans were pretty unhappy with her remarks concerning Alden Ehrenreich and Solo: A Star Wars Story, but now we have a full interview and she's come out to discuss where Star Wars is heading. Now I will say as a disclaimer that this article contains a lot of stuff we already know, so I just want to highlight the important bits. First of all, she confirms, as many of us suspected, that Rogue Squadron by Patty Jenkins is indefinitely delayed, and this is due to the script needing a rewrite, so Taika Waititi's unknown Star Wars movie is going to be the next big cinematic release. And about this movie, she says that it's going to kickstart a new age of Star Wars, so Taika's film is really going to be the basis for a new era of storytelling, and by the sounds of things, we're going far into the past, maybe Old Republic, or conversely, it could be far into the future. But in either case, Lucasfilm is ready to move on from the Skywalker saga. Kathy also revealed that Lucasfilm wants the next wave of Star Wars films to be connected, but it's not going to be a trilogy, and she also makes adamantly clear that she doesn't want Star Wars to become the MCU. And for this new incentive, Lucasfilm is looking for committed filmmakers who are prepared to dedicate the foreseeable future to Star Wars. And this is where, believe it or not, Rian Johnson comes in. As I covered yesterday, Kathy recently said that Rian Johnson is way too busy to work on Star Wars, but in this new article she insists he is still involved in the creative process, reportedly attending regular Brain Trust meetings and being kept in the loop about the creative direction where Star Wars is headed. In her own words, she said the following: Rian has been unbelievably busy with Knives Out and the deal he made at Netflix for multiple movies. I've had meetings with Rian. He's somebody that comes in as part of our little Brain Trust discussions along the way. He remains very committed to what it is we're trying to do. He just literally has not had the time to devote. That's what I'm saying. Anyone who comes into the Star Wars universe needs to know it's a 3, 4, 5 year commitment. That's what it takes. You can't just step in for a year and shoot something and then walk away. It just doesn't work that way. So it requires that kind of nurturing. Now I will admit, this answer was the most surprising for me, because when Kathy came out the other day and said Rian is too busy, it sounded like a polite way of saying that his trilogy is not happening. But to know that he's still being kept in the loop and is a part of Lucasfilm's creative team, or at least creative vision, is definitely something I would never have imagined. But there you go, that's the update. And the final thing that Kathy mentions that is of note is how Lucasfilm are now trying to focus on eras. And by the sounds of things, the Acolyte is going to be the start of a High Republic live-action initiative. But the good news in this article is that Lucasfilm are finally ready to move away from the legacy characters and the Skywalker saga. Once Obi-Wan is done, I think we're in for a new age of Star Wars, and maybe that's what the franchise needs. Not to say the current slate isn't great, The Mandalorian is of course the biggest success that Lucasfilm has, but exploring new eras and creating new characters is going to help Lucasfilm and Star Wars redefine itself in a fresh new way. And so now guys, before we talk about the Book of Boba Fett, we actually have a little bit of news for the Bad Batch, or rather, a tidbit. Once again, Jennifer Corbett is teased that we're in for something really special at Star Wars Celebration at the Bad Batch panel. Various creatives on the show have been teasing it for a long time, and next Sunday, May the 29th, we're going to see what they're talking about. I think we're getting a release date, also a trailer, so that's going to be huge. They're going to be speaking about what to expect come season 2. The themes, the character evolution, the galaxy and what it's like at the time, and how much of a time jump there's going to be. So let's wait and see. Next weekend is Star Wars Celebration. And so finally, my dear friends, the second of 2 Vanity Fair articles that released yesterday. This one is a bit weird, I'm not gonna lie. It's Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni defending certain decisions they made with the Book of Boba Fett, and from what I've seen on social media, a lot of fans agree it comes across as overly defensive at times and peculiar in some places. Notably, how their view and vision of the character of Boba Fett is contradictory to how Star Wars fans have viewed him for over 40 years. Let's dive into it. Jon Favreau explains why Boba Fett couldn't break bad. Now this article basically says that Boba Fett is not the villain or the bad guy we thought he was. Favreau explains that in the Book of Boba Fett, he's more careful and doesn't want to get involved in crime, which is kind of contradictory to the aim of him becoming daimyo and the crime lord. Favreau also says that Boba is more Don Corleone than Walter White. Now the problem with this comparison, in my opinion, is that everyone in The Godfather had a natural respect for the character, but nobody respected Boba in his show. He had to go out of his way to do more to prove himself as a worthy crime leader. Another problem with this comparison is the moral side of things. Despite his public demeanor at times, at the heart of his character, the Don was a criminal through and through, and not a very good person, but the Book of Boba Fett tries to portray Boba as meaning well, having good intentions and being morally sound, which is what led him to wanting to become the crime boss, or as he puts it, ruling with respect. But to compare these two characters is pretty erroneous in my opinion. Also, the Don was intelligent, he knew how to play the crime game, but in the Book of Boba Fett, he's constantly making wrong decisions and is not familiar with the crime scene of Mos Espa. Now look, I see what Jon Favreau is trying to say here, and of course the Book of Boba Fett took major influence from The Godfather, but this comparison is not the best. Now overall, I do see what they were going for, and I do think the Book of Boba Fett deserves a second season. There was so much potential there. And next up in the article, Dave Filoni gave his opinion, stating that he disagrees with the popular notion held in the fandom that Boba Fett was one of the few characters who could defy Darth Vader. And finally, Filoni also says that something they wanted to do with this series was to show that Boba Fett is more clever than combative, and he criticized the fan notion of buying into the myth of Boba Fett rather than understanding the nuances of the character. So a very interesting read indeed, and I'll be fascinated to see if at the Mando Plus panel we do get an update if we're getting a Boba Fett season 2. Temuera Morrison is going to be attending, so fingers crossed. But let me know your thoughts of this, my dear friends, and everything we spoke about in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to give me a big fat thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you're new, and a huge welcome if you are. But until the next one, may the Force be with you always. I'm Star Wars Meg, have a good one.